Hello, my name is Gustavo Paiva. I'm candidate number 1246, and this is my CCR for our movie, The Accused. The Accused follows Detective Joseph Kavanaugh as he tries to find a serial killer and then is accused of his wife's murder. In our first 2 minutes, you will see a dream sequence in which Mary Kavanaugh calls out to Joseph, and then a match cut to Stephen calling Joseph. Stephen is Joseph's friend, neighbor, and doctor, who has been trying to get him out of his depressive episode for a long time. Joseph then gets a knock on the door and finds out that he's been accused of his wife's murder and therefore discharged from the police. This is a movie about a man's fight against an unreasonable authority. By the end of the movie, Joseph does not win, and in fact is tried for his wife's murder and then executed. So before I begin, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about technology. So I used an iPhone 13 to film this whole thing, and we used CapCut to edit it. We also had a giant Word document which we shared all our ideas and our script, which we thought would make it easier for us to collaborate. This is the mise en scène report for our movie, The Accused. On Joseph's table, you will see all the items which I'll be talking about. All of them contain a deeper meaning to our story. On the left side of Joseph's table, you can see The Trial by Franz Kafka. The Accused is loosely based on this book as it tries to adapt the absurd and overpowering feeling of being tried for a crime which our main character did not commit. The book is somewhat visible and purposely placed on Joseph's table, not only aiming to build character on which kinds of media Joseph consumes, but also adding a deep and interpretative aspect to our film. Joseph, struggling against a society which considered him guilty from the start, loses all control of his life and is forced to watch as he's deemed guilty for murder and then forced to face execution by the end of our film. Here, the book can also be considered foreshadowing, as the main characters both face the same execution. The trial actually follows the life of an increasingly anxious man who is accused for a crime and not told what crime he's accused of, and then is unable to prove his innocence against an overpowering judicial system. We think the book very much encapsulates the tone which we feel to replicate. Also visible on the left side of the table is a copy of Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This book is meant to show Joseph's inner guilt and alienation, and this whole sequence with Joseph and Stephen is actually based on a conversation which Raskolnikov has with his friend Razumikin, in which Raskolnikov is ill and delirious on his couch while Razumikin steps in to comfort him. Throughout the movie, Joseph is meant to be a recluse who is facing a heavy loss while also on the search for a serial killer. So he's very paranoid and guilt-driven. Joseph's inner guilt stems from his belief that his failure to solve the serial killings led directly to his wife's murder. Joseph's personality is actually also meant to be quite like Raskolnikov's, as he appears egoistic and, like Raskolnikov, denies a friend which he sees beneath him. This is meant to be a recurring conflict within Joseph's relationship, and it shapes the way his accusation takes control. Stephen's personality reflects Razumikin's, as he goes out of his way to help his friend, and likewise, Stephen is a foil and opposite to Joseph, acting as a sort of light to his shadow. Both stories are led by an inner anguish and meant to oscillate between deep rooting and psychological meaning. These numbered letters which you see on the screen are actually the killer's letters to Joseph Kavanaugh. They are meant to show that the killer means to keep in touch with Joseph and has already sent him multiple codes. They're not very visible in the scenes. One of these opened letters is actually a code based on the Zodiac Killer's codes to the police, and another one is an excerpt from A Season in Hell by Arthur Rimbaud. These are meant to provide a background to the killer as a sadistic person with an intent to communicate with Joseph. Mainly, this shows Joseph's progression into madness and his obsession with the case. This can also be classified as a common trope in similar mystery and thriller genres, in which a detective and a killer engage in a cat-and-mouse game, in which correspondence builds psychological tension. Joseph's notebook contains two very significant parts. On the left, you can see a glimpse into the characters which would be present for the rest of our movie. When finding ideas for our first 2 minutes, we thought about what the movie would be like as a whole, so that we would have something to build to. This is meant to show Joseph's mental deterioration as he tries to find any connections to his wife's murder. Here, you can see 3 victims which have been killed using a variety of different methods. If you look closely, you can also see that all these women are also high class. This is an attempt of foreshadowing while also establishing an aspect of identity. With a closer look, the killer's name is circled as Phantom, and his victims all share a high economic class. Mary, who is implied to be wealthy and can be seen having a purse, fur on her jacket, and a gold bracelet in Joseph's dream scene, is now one of these victims. Also present in the notebook is a sketch of what Joseph believes the killer looks like. This is not at all meant to be an accurate depiction, and might as well be a random person which Joseph has decided to sketch. again, only meant to show Joseph's deteriorating mental state. This also shows how desperate Joseph is in regards to finding the killer. This can be linked to society's feelings towards Joseph, as he is accused, tried, and executed simply out of society's desperate need to feel safe. In their anxieties, they falsely accuse an innocent man purely based on speculation. By drawing the face of a random man and deeming him as a suspect, Joseph somewhat proves that he's capable of the same injustice. We thought of using mise en scène to tell a completely different story of what our movie would be like, because we didn't want to add too much exposition to the 2 minutes of our story.
This is our production and distribution report for our movie, The Accused.
The production company we chose was New Line Cinema. Through movies like Seven and American History X, they encapsulate the mood which we hope to follow. They also have a great track record with thrillers and a demonstrated ability to engage with our audience. They would allow for creative freedom and unique visions, which would be better for the production of our movie. And they would also allow for a strong distribution network, Warner Brothers. Our movie's distribution hopes to follow a collaboration between Warner Brothers and its subsidiary New Line Cinema. We believe that Warner Brothers can effectively promote our film, leading to an increase in viewership and generating buzz. Through theatrical releases, streaming services, and merchandising, we think we could ensure a wider audience and a maximization of potential revenue. They're also very adaptable, evident in movies such as The Shawshank Redemption and Inception. We think this could promote our movie well. Marketing. Utilizing posters, social media, and streaming services to create a wider appeal. The posters for our film are meant to be interpretive and mysterious, allowing for audience inclusion and analysis. They are also meant to show the despair of Joseph Kavanaugh as he struggles with being falsely accused of murder. When it comes to social media, we believe that teasers on TikTok and Instagram will be very effective, as they are a short video format, free advertisement, and they keep the movie intriguing and enigmatic. The creation of a Joseph Kavanaugh TikTok account would be a great way to share promotion for the movie while maintaining the movie's themes of guilt and isolation. Making eerie TikToks through Kavanaugh's eyes would help introduce his character to audiences and make them curious to see more. YouTube would also be a great way to share trailers for our movie, as they allow for longer videos, multiple trailers, and are widely available. Making a The Accused YouTube channel would be a great way to share our trailers with a wide variety of people, and it would also allow us to post multiple trailers over time leading up to the release of our movie. This would build up interest and draw more audiences. Our collaboration with Warner Brothers also opens up a very good opportunity to have Max as our main streaming service. Owned by parent company Warner Media, it is a perfect fit for our movie. We believe The Accused would be a very good fit for the quality content on Max, and it would also make our movie very accessible on many devices, which makes it convenient for people to watch it wherever. Marketing support would also be involved, as targeting advertising campaigns and promotional efforts are all part of Max's reach to get more people to watch their movies. The target audience for our movie are fans of suspenseful and psychological horror movies. Also, fans of detective movies and dystopian movies would greatly enjoy The Accused, as we try to provide a satisfying mix of both. Similarly, our movie is specifically tailored to those who enjoy analyzing the meaning of movies and what they say about the outside world. The Accused is a story about a young detective who finds himself in an absurd situation, having to face the struggle of being falsely accused of his wife's murder, and the torment which comes from fighting her killer, the Phantom. You should watch The Accused because it illustrates an ordinary person's fight against an accusatory society in which lies heavily influenced by common people. In a twist ending, Joseph Kavanaugh is put on trial and condemned to death.
How did you become better in the filmmaking process from the beginning, middle, and end?
One big part about the beginning, middle, and end, especially in the beginning, was acting as a sort of hook for our audience. The whole 2 minutes acts as a hook for the audience for the whole entire movie, but we wanted the beginning part to be especially intriguing to our audiences. In the middle, it was very hard because we needed to find a way to fit in exposition in a way that didn't seem like we were throwing it onto our audience or the whole movie was just exposition. And I think that was definitely hard, especially with disagreements between members. Within the end, we wanted to leave the audience in suspense, and we thought that'd be hard, but we think we did a really good job of doing that. But yeah, that's it.
How did you address editing, sound, and revising your film?
I would say editing and sound were definitely a big part of our movie, as we tried to create slow-paced scenes to create tension between the characters and suspense between the audience. Part of this was the Dutch angle, which was meant to disorient the viewer. And also a lot of sound effects were used. Like, for example, when Joseph wakes up from the audio match cut from his wife calling his name, and then he sees Steven. This is meant to sort of show the audience that things aren't what it seems, and Joseph just got up from like a really good dream to his bad reality. I would say that sound and editing in our film is definitely something we didn't have before we took media studies, and it's definitely a learned skill that we learned to perfect over time.
This is the director's commentary for our movie, The Accused. I will be going over cinematography choices as well as editing choices.
Joseph. Joseph.
Joseph. Joseph. You're finally awake.
In this beginning scene, you can see we use a match cut as well as a sound bridge to kind of connect both scenes together through dialogue as well as the character positioning. The fade transition connects these two scenes and shows that Joseph is actually just waking up. The Dutch angle makes our audience uneasy, which is a very good way to early on set up a tone for the rest of the film.
Here, take this for your fever.
So there's a couple things going on in these scenes. First, you can see Steven gives Joseph a cup of water and a pill. This is significant because Steven is actually meant to be a doctor and is currently taking care of Joseph. Something else going on is actually the music. So it's credited to Chopin, but it actually fades into the scene. So we really liked this because we thought it meant like our scene was going by faster and we wanted to keep our audience on edge. And we thought this song was just perfect for that. Something else that's notable is the way that we use the title sequence as well as the music to make these scenes feel less drawn out and long, while also showing off some of our mise en scène, which you can see on Joseph's table. Something else that's notable is that this is actually the first scene in which we see Joseph Kavanaugh, and the reason why we delayed this scene for so long is because we wanted the audience to sort of see what Joseph was seeing throughout the first couple seconds of the movie. This two-shot is actually very significant to me. As you can see, both characters are meant to occupy the same amount of space on the screen, and this kind of works to show an early parallel between the two characters. In the background, if you look closely, on the left, Joseph's colors are blue and cold, while Steven's are warm and bright. This is kind of backed up by their physical behavior as well. Like you can see on the right, Steven is actually slouching forward. He wants to help Joseph, see if anything's wrong, see if he can do anything for him. But Joseph sort of coldly just slouches back into his couch and he just doesn't want any help.
You're very ill. It's gotten worse. I mean, just look at yourself. What is all this?
I'm fine.
So here you can see we use a Dutch angle, and the reason why we used this Dutch angle was because from the very beginning of our movie, our main goal was to kind of disorient our viewer, and we really wanted to set up a tone very early on, and we thought this Dutch angle was doing that perfectly. It caused unease, and it made our movie seem more realistic. In regards to tone, I think this scene establishes something very well, because as you can see, the shadow, it kind of shows that there's a side of Joseph which the audience hasn't seen yet, and like there's still more to know about this character.
Clearly you're not. When was the last time you ate?
This scene is actually just us trying to use the 180-degree rule to kind of show what a normal conversation between Joseph and Steven would normally be like. But it also helps to give our audience more background into what's happening in our movie and also build characters.
It doesn't matter. Can't you see I'm busy? You don't have to come by here every day.
I know it has been easy for you since you lost her, but you can't keep destroying yourself like this. Is this all the evidence from your case?
I didn't lose her. She was taken from me.
This scene and the scene prior to it are actually meant to break up the 180-degree rule because we didn't want our entire movie to just be these two characters talking. We wanted more to happen. But it also serves a purpose as it shows a closer look into the mise en scène, which I break down earlier in my CCR.
What could that be?
This again is a two-shot, and it maybe even better shows the color theory which I was talking about earlier. Like for example, on the left you can see the cold colors, and on the right you can see the warm colors. But the purpose of this scene is actually to break the two-shot and get Steven sort of out of the picture so we can move on to a greater scene. This scene is actually just meant to show character. We thought it was a very strong scene. As you can see, Joseph walks up to the door and looks through the peephole before he sees whether or not he should let this person in. And this is what we think Joseph would actually do in the scenario.
I'm here on orders from Lieutenant Monroe. She's entrusted me with delivering this letter to Joseph Kavanaugh, dictating the exact terms of his suspension from the police.
Suspension?
Yes. We are currently under investigation for the murder of Mary Kavanaugh. Here we did this dolly zoom, and at first we really didn't like this choice. We thought it was just childish and it over-exaggerated. But over time it really did grow on us, and we do think it adds to the seriousness of the film. It's meant to show Joseph's reaction to this accusation. And this is also why we chose to break the convention and include the title at the end of our film, because this is the moment where Joseph first gets accused. This is the moment where everything flips upside down and he can no longer control his own future. Now, I feel it's important to talk about some of the aspects of identity which are present in our movie. The first would be social class, seen through Joseph. Joseph, being a recluse from society, suffers greatly from people's presuppositions of him. Joseph is accused partly because of his weird and antisocial tendencies, which evidently make him stand out around those around him. Seen in the clip, Joseph completely disregards Stephen and is even angry when someone knocks on his door. Though grieving, this behavior is also somewhat expected of Joseph, and inevitably makes him unfavorable to those around him. Here, the idea of Joseph's wife, Mary, can also be applied. Joseph's wife, Mary, is highly likable and loved within the community. The contrast between these two characters creates a sort of bitterness between how people view Joseph versus how they view Mary. This is also partly why the people are so desperate to serve justice and find the killer. More present in our 2-minute clip is economic class. Seen through Mary, Mary is seen wearing a fur, a gold bracelet, and an expensive purse. This is significant as she shares this economic class with the other victims of the Phantom. It provides a glimpse into what the killer is really trying to say through the murder of these women, and it could also be a possible motive for why he kills. Joseph is also suspected of murdering his wife for being jealous of her higher status, another factor leading to his arrest. Another aspect of identity could be gender. First, gender is represented through the assumptions which society imposes on Joseph to convict him of the crime. Joseph is suspected based on the assumption that when a man's wife dies, it is often the husband who murders her. This trope is present in many movies and is meant to show how, at times, gender and crime can come together to form baseless assumptions. Here, gender can also be shown through Joseph's relationship with his wife. Joseph's loss of his wife is supposed to be a journey on how grief and the loss of a loved one can often greatly alter the self. This is a common trope in detective films. In detective films, the main characters are almost always seen as melancholy characters which have a strong connection to their significant other. The example of Seven works here perfectly, as Detective William is often shown isolated and alone, which is meant to parallel David Mills and his strong connection to his wife leading up to her death. The loss of a loved one is often represented in movies relating to police, which we follow in this movie as Joseph too loses his wife. Often, these movies might have a happy or satisfying ending where the killer is caught and justice is served. Our movie challenges this, as no justice is served and the true killer is never caught. This again is similar to Seven and its ending twist. In our movie, the killer is never caught and Joseph ends up executed for the alleged murder of his wife.